Hi, I'm Darlene Carman.
And I'm Doug Carman.
Welcome to the show. Doug and I took a road trip this year up the California coast, Oregon coast, and into central Washington. We made several stops of interest, and today we will share with you a place we think is very special, the B. Bryan Preserve at Point Arena on the coast of California. Dr. Frank Mello and Judy Mello are the owners and operators of the private conservation center protecting and breeding African hoofed animals. They offer tours during the feedings of the antelope, zebras, and giraffes. We will introduce Dr. Frank Mello in this clip of our visit to the B. Bryan Preserve. And it's in Point Arena, California. So hi, welcome.
How are you?
Welcome. Now you like to remind people that you are not a zoo.
No, we're not a zoo. We're certified with the American Zoological Association, but we are a private breeding and conservation center. There are many zoos around, and there are many sanctuaries, and we are neither of those. Our focus is on the preservation of African hoofstock. And it's real easy to become a zoo or become a menagerie. That's how most zoos start out. You just acquire animals that you like, and all of a sudden you've got a menagerie. And we decided long ago that that wasn't our interest. Our interest is in saving and increasing the numbers of very specific population of certain animals only from Africa.
Now you started out with the antelope, so tell us the experience there.
I got interested in this when I was in Mississippi, where I met my wife, and I have a lot of friends in West Texas who have exotic animals on their ranches. I got interested in what they were doing in conservation, and we acquired our first African antelope, the sable antelope, and put them on our ranch in Mississippi. And then about 8 years ago, we had an opportunity to move back here, and we did, and we brought our animals with us. Our ranch is still there. We're here.
What was the interest in Texas? I wasn't aware that they had exotic animals.
In Texas, there are a lot of big ranches there, and they've a lot of ranchers, either when they were in World War II or went over there to hunt in Africa, decided that this looks like West Texas, so why not bring these animals back and put them on our ranches? And they did that back in the 50s and the 60s. And now there are certain species of antelope, African antelope, where there are more of them in Texas than there are in Africa.
Wow.
Antelope, they're beautiful. It's out on they're preserved there at Point Arena, and they got lots of room. You can see they're being fed, and he has to do that every day.
Beautiful animals. They have that stripe down the center of their face, and their colorations of their coats are quite different too. You can see they're quite happy.
Yeah.
A nice big preserve there. Yeah, very nice.
One like Africa, I think it's a little cooler there, but he says they really enjoy the weather. Says they're well adapted to it.
Babies there, look at that. Yeah, they seem to be quite content. And he's out there feeding them twice a day, rain or shine. Goodness.
I think we're going to see, there's some babies they have, so their breeding is coming along, program is coming along quite well. Oh, here we have the zebra.
Grevy. The Grevy zebras are the largest of the different species, and you can tell them because they're large, but also they have their stripes are a little bit different. When you compare them to, like, say, the mountain zebra has larger stripes on the rear portion of the animal.
He only has two breeds of zebras, and these are both, as I understand, endangered in Africa right now.
And he has babies too, so the breeding programs are doing quite well. You can see the large stripes on the bottom of the on the back of that.
Yeah,
one.
that's the mountain zebra.
And they have like a little extra flap around their neck too. They kind of look like a donkey.
There's another baby.
Not to be offensive or anything like that. But oh, look at that baby. Is he precious or what?
Now I think we're going to see some giraffes here.
The Rothschild? Beautiful.
They're the largest of the giraffes.
Very majestic. The coloring, if you notice, you won't see any markings underneath their knees. From their knees down, there's no markings. That's one way that you can recognize them. Also, their coat is light in color. Quite nice. So, you know, we've had some photographers on the show, and they have beautiful pictures of big, massive herds going across the migrations, going in the plains. You think that the animals are endless. Yeah?
Well, what about the TV program?
Yeah.
Yeah, the nature programs where you see these big, vast herds, and there's always there's always a lion or a cheetah chasing them.
And the token one that gets away.
Oh, yeah. Well, one of the things the programs don't really concentrate on that much is what the poachers are doing to the animals in Africa. I don't think they really cover the specifics and the extent of how poaching is what's been going on in Africa.
No, they don't. And so I think that we should hear more from
what I'd like to say, I was really impressed with
yes,
what
let's
they're
hear what
doing.
Dr. Frank Mello has to say about the topic.
The problems that are associated and going on in Africa. I think the continent is the most beautiful continent in the world. It has the most beautiful plants and animals, but it's a continent under terrible stress right now. It's all due to the explosion in human population. And unfortunately, because of that, probably in 85 years, there will be no animals left in the wild. And I'll give you a parallel on it if you want to kind of get a snapshot of what's going to happen there. It's North America. North America had the greatest migration of them all. We had the American bison. We had over 10 million American bison in this country. The white man came in the 1800s and shot it almost to extinction. I think it was down to 21 animals. It'll never come back to where it was, although thanks to people like Ted Turner who have large tracts of land, they're bringing the bison back, but it'll never be what it was. And in Africa has the remaining great migrations. The primary migration is in Kenya and Tanzania. It's the migration of the blue wildebeest, the common zebra, and the Thompson gazelle. It's over 2 million animals that migrate there. But right now it's under a lot of stress. It's a world heritage. But you've got the Chinese government in there mining for rare earth metals around Lake Victoria, and they want to put a highway right through the Great Migration so they can get these minerals back to the ocean to China to make cell phones and computers. Have no concern about what happens to those animals, because if you did that, you would wipe out about half of that migration. And it's a sight to be seen. You need to go over there and see it if you can. But that's just one example of what's going on in Africa. Another example, Nigeria. It's a country about the size of New Mexico and Arizona. In about 20 years, there are going to be more humans in Nigeria than there are in all of North America. Imagine that. But that is just an example of what's happening to the whole continent. And when that happens, the wildlife compete with humans, and they're always going to lose.
Yeah, right. They're losing now.
Well, you've got the population there is 1 billion people. It's going to be probably over 4 billion people in about 85 years.
But even with the efforts of trying to bring in the tourists and going on safari and all that, with all the dangers going on to tourists,
well, the problem is when the population explodes like that, you either have to feed them or there's going to be mass starvation. You have the Gates Foundation and other foundations over there. You've got U2 Bono that are involved in curing diseases and that. It's a very noble cause. But my question to them is, what are you going to do when you've gone from 1 billion people to over 4 billion people? they're not going to just all of a sudden get educated and have 2 children per family.
Yeah.
You're going to have a terrible explosion in the human population. And right now, an example is giraffe. It's an iconic species of Africa. In the last 10 years, the population of giraffe has decreased by 30%. We have the rare and endangered Rothschild giraffe here, which used to be very common in Africa. There's only 650 left. Right now, the problem with them is they're getting eaten because people are starving. Okay, and I'm not knocking Iowa, but when you have that many people, you've got major corporations and countries going into Africa right now and buying up large tracts of land to produce soybeans and corn and livestock. If you've ever driven through Iowa,
I haven't.
it's soybeans and corn. You see on Africa has the largest tract of arable land in the world. This beautiful plains with all these animals. Imagine it all looking like Iowa. And Africa's going to have to make that decision because tourism is their #1 industry, and it's all because of the land and the animals. And they're going to have to make a decision between that and this huge explosion in the population.
But I'm thinking the tourism's kind of gone down. At least that's what I hear.
And see, my question to the Gates Foundation is, what are you doing about the consequences of what's going to happen through your programs? You have to be responsible for the consequences. The destruction of the habitat and the wildlife.
So if we lose the wildlife, then what?
You've got Iowa.
We have more with Dr. Mello in a continuation of our show on part 2. There is a huge movement for organizations around the world to join in the effort to protect our wildlife and encourage public support. To address all our precious wildlife is beyond our scope. So for the purpose of this show, we will focus on giraffes. Our giraffe expert is Amy Phelps, a 13-year veteran zookeeper for the Oakland Zoo. Under her leadership, their giraffe training program has received awards from the American Association of Zookeepers and the International Association of Giraffe Care Professionals. Hey, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Amy, what is Oakland Zoo right now doing in their participation efforts to save the giraffes in Africa?
We have a pretty big participation actually for a zoo of our size. We are one of the biggest supporters of the Reticulated Giraffe Project, which is based in Kenya with principal researcher John Doherty. And John's doing some great work to census the population. He's also doing some really fantastic studies to look at the social organization so we can really find out more about giraffe. And we support John both financially and through sending staff to help him out and sending equipment and things of that nature. So some of us, keeper-wise, have been really fortunate enough to be able to go and participate in those studies there. We also have sent both funding and staff to the Rothschild Giraffe Project, which is run by a woman named Zoe Mueller at the Soy Sambu Conservancy, which is also in Kenya. And Zoe has done some really groundbreaking work, both to census the population so that she actually got the Rothschild giraffe declared as an endangered species for the first time, which was a really important piece of what she does. So the zoo is definitely excited and proud to support both of those really important projects.
So how many times do you go to Africa to work on this? How exciting.
It is exciting. It's a pretty good perk to the job.
Yes.
We take turns, so it's not always the same person, and we try and send lots of different keeper staff so that we all get the experience both with the research and we can really try and support the project and get to know people and really get on the ground and see what's really happening there. So I was fortunate enough to go last year, and we sent a couple keepers the year after me as well.
What was your impression? I've always wanted to go there, and I haven't yet, but what was your impression of it?
It's a magical place. If you love wildlife and you love nature and you appreciate culture and a unique place, Africa is an amazing place, and you will never be the same after you've been there.
Oh,
it's a wonderful thing to do.
Oh, that's boy. So online at girafferesearch.com, did a little research there, and I found out that giraffes are very low on the scale for conservation efforts and planning. You figure, like, well, what Dr. Mello was saying, 650 Rothschild giraffe or 670 I read, compared to 690,000 or so elephants. It seems like a little bit of an imbalance there. So what's being done about that imbalance, if anything, and what's helping the giraffe population?
The imbalance exists, I think, mostly because giraffe really have to compete with other really charismatic species like elephants, and there are definitely far more elephants in Africa than there are giraffe. In Africa, the latest numbers from the Giraffe Conservation Foundation and the IUCN tell us that there's about 450,000 elephants and there's about 80,000 giraffe. But
Totally, that's all the different species?
in the continent of Africa. But elephants are listed as endangered and giraffes are listed as a species of least concern. And it's really a matter of some politics, but largely it's about the research needing to be done and the case needing to be made. And that's something that the Giraffe Conservation Foundation is working very hard to do. And through projects like the Rothschild Giraffe Project, they've been able to get certain subspecies declared as endangered, and the reticulated giraffe will probably be declared endangered next. And the West African giraffe is also already considered endangered. So I think it's work that's being done, and I think it'll get there, and they'll keep moving up the scale. But it's really just a matter of people like you taking an interest and really trying to get the word out there that, you know, if we don't do something about it, there will be a time in the near future when this majestic, magical animal doesn't exist in the wild, and the only place people can see them is a zoo.
Yeah, they seem to be at such a critical stage, you know, and they're such a majestic animal. You just, that's what I couldn't understand.
They are.
They're so beautiful.
Can you break down the numbers of, like, say, the reticulated giraffe versus the Rothschild? So 650 or so Rothschild compared to how many reticulated?
There are about 4,500 reticulated giraffe is what we think. The censusing is still being done.
They don't have collars on them, right?
Not all of them. There are a few giraffes here and there around Africa that are radio collared, but those projects are really watching how they move and what their territories are, and that's mostly focused on large bulls, big male giraffe.
So to see their migratory patterns then.
Right, and so, you know, there are a little less than 5,000 reticulated giraffe in the wild, and that sounds like a big number when you see it compared to the Rothschild number. But you have to consider that in the last probably 13 years or so, that number has dropped by about 85%. Wow. So for a short period of time, that's a huge population loss for the reticulated giraffe.
So do you see that the scale might be a little bit more weighing towards a giraffe in the future? And what would make that happen? Just
I do.
Awareness and...
Awareness and the work of the Giraffe Conservation Foundation and those individual researchers on the ground who are really pushing with IUCN to really declare them a more important species, and species that we really need to focus on. And unfortunately, you know, whatever species you love is the most important one to you. And there has to be some system that allows them to prioritize them. But I think they're getting there, and the research has to be done to support the numbers, and I think that's really the important thing that the Giraffe Conservation Foundation is doing, is they're finding out things we haven't known.
I can imagine that what the zoos can do a lot in getting the giraffes out in the public notice, or they can see how beautiful these animals are, and just instead of looking in a coloring book where the kids might have, they can actually. So, is that zoos doing anything to promote more interaction with the public so that they can view and see what?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of really great education programs. So there's teachers that will teach the kids about what's going on with giraffe conservation when they come to the zoo. But also just being there in the presence of those animals is a lot. There's signage that educates people. The keepers do keeper talks, come out and feed a giraffe, talk to the people about the animal, introduce people to the animal. We do everything we can to really make our captive giraffe ambassadors for their wild counterparts, because that's why they're here.
Well, it's always a big deal when there's a birth there.
Yes.
We've done that before. We've gone out there, and I've actually taken. I know where they are. You know, they're not exactly open to the public yet, but you know, if you hold your camera up like this,
In the back of the
pictures, it's just so cute. But I mean, that's big news when there's births.
Absolutely.
Yeah, how many births have you had now at the zoo?
In the time that I've been there, we've had about 10, so about 10 in the
Wow.
last 15 years.
Do they,
It's very good.
how often do giraffes give birth? Is it a long process? They're such a big animal.
It depends. We can control who breeds with who and when with birth control.
so you
we
do
give
have
the
control over
mommies'
the-
bodies a break, which is the kind thing to do. But their gestation is relatively long. It's 15 months long.
Oh,
So
I
they're
didn't know that.
pregnant for a very long time. It takes a long time to make a baby that big. Their babies are about 6 feet tall when they're born, and they weigh about 100 to 150 pounds. So it's a large baby.
it's quite successful too, isn't it?
It is. They're excellent breeders.
Yeah, we have a couple of pictures here, so let's take a look at the zoo animals right here.
Introduce our
Your
family.
zoo, this
Introduce
is your
our family.
zoo
Yes.
family
Yeah,
of
this is
giraffes.
3
then?
of our 9. You have Balthazar at the far back, Benghazi in the
Oh,
middle,
you know 'em by
Tiki
name.
closest up. Yeah, Tiki,
Yeah.
the one closest up, is actually 25. She's our oldest giraffe.
And then this one is so cute. This is one of the younger, the babies. And
Look at this. This little, what is
They're
that?
little wrinkles. That's my skin is too big and I have to grow. It's just like
I
a
love
puppy.
that.
Oh, that face. That face
that
is
beautiful?
just beautiful, beautiful.
This looks like such gentle and
They
are,
Could
really.
you tell the markings? How would I know? Like, now I know the Rothschild because it doesn't have anything below the knee. I do get confused when I try to tell the difference. Is there some key thing I would know?
There's some, yeah. The subspecies are divided based on skull characteristics, range in the wild, and physical markings. In captivity, it gets a little hard because they're not always totally purebred. So sometimes the markings aren't exactly what they're supposed to be, but the reticulated giraffe that we have tend to have sort of the big open octagon shapes.
The octagon. Look for the octagon.
So that's the easiest way.
It's hard. So totally, you have. Did I hear you say 9?
9. Mm-hmm.
9. That's
We
pretty
have
good.
9.
Wow. Well, your work with giraffe training has been receiving some recognition now, and so tell us about your enrichment program and just what do you do?
Well, we feel like it's really important to keep not just their bodies busy and healthy, but their brains as well. So we put them in captivity, and that's great that the people get to come and see them, but we have a responsibility to make sure that they have everything that they need to be happy here. And we have a responsibility to make sure that they are comfortable and confident in their environment. And so we do a large amount of positive reinforcement training, mostly based in medical husbandry behaviors. So we teach them to voluntarily participate in things like x-ray procedures, or having your lungs listened to, or having your hooves trimmed, or having a veterinarian look in your eyes, things like that. And they do it all in exchange for some kind of treat, which is usually a little banana or a carrot. So it's just like how you teach your dog to sit for a biscuit.
Yes.
We ask them to stand in a particular location and allow a medical procedure in exchange for a treat. And enrichment-wise, we give them everything we can to encourage natural behaviors. So we generally are trying to extend the time that they spend foraging. We don't want them to just stand and eat out of a bucket for 5 minutes and then be done, because then there's
Yes.
23 hours left in the day.
Yes.
So we give them puzzle feeders and things where they have to use that long prehensile tongue. They have an 18-inch long tongue that can grab things like you can with your fingers.
Yes.
So we give them all sorts of different devices to keep them busy.
Well, yeah, let's take a look at one of the things you do with the
My
enrichment
favorite.
program. I want to show this.
Ta-da!
Yeah,
An artist.
Take a look at
An
that.
artist.
We got a giraffe that paints.
We do. That's Benghazi. Benghazi is
fantastic.
trained to hold a paintbrush
Yeah.
in his mouth and drag it across a canvas, and he does that in exchange for a banana.
Oh,
And
so
he's
they,
the only one that does this?
He's the only one we've taught to do it. Yeah, he likes it. I think
Oh, I
he knows
bet.
it makes him special.
Oh, that is really something. Wow. Well, We're just about out of time here, but there's a news flash that we have going on. The Giraffe Conservation Foundation is celebrating its first ever Giraffe Day coming up June 21st next year, 2014.
This
And
coming
so, so tell us a little, we'll talk in detail more, but we have just a little time to say a little bit about it.
Oh, we're just in the beginning stages of organizing it, so it'll be the very first ever World Giraffe Day. We're really excited about it, and if people want to come to the Oakland Zoo, we're definitely going to be celebrating. We'll have activities for kids and lots of fun things at the giraffe exhibit.
Oh, it sounds like a lot of fun.
It is. It's definitely important.
How did this come about? How did this day?
It's part of the Giraffe Conservation Foundation's campaign to really get awareness for the need for conservation of giraffe really up, and get it to be something that people are aware of, get people to really think about the species and find out what they can do about it. And so we decided that there's a lot of other charismatic, big African species that have a day, and the giraffe need a day too.
We have a logo. Do you have that handy, or?
Just a second. No. Oh, yeah.
Let's see the logo.
Yeah.
The official
There it is,
logo.
the official logo.
Yeah, very nice.
And the Oakland Zoo is part of the team that's helping to plan the international activities for this
But this
day.
is going on all over the world.
All over the world.
All over the world. Many zoos and other organizations all over the world.
All over the
so I think it's fantastic. I love
is.
that, to be a part of Giraffe Day
And everybody
next year.
wants to come out and go to the zoo
That's right.
on Giraffe Day.
And just
June 21st.
look at movies and just watch TV shows. Anything giraffe is good. So thanks for watching the show, and watch again.